Round 2 of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Silverstone this weekend. It is the full Grand Prix circuit in use. It's a fantastic lap and another fantastic entry. 62 cars took to the track yesterday across the bronze test, free practice and then pre-qualifying, and qualifying itself is about to get underway. It's divided into the usual 3 segments. The quieter track will be Q1, and when the bulk of the times are going to be set, it's Q3. Track temperature 14.3 degrees. It's a bit overcast. There is the hint of some sunshine breaking through the cloud, but there's also talk of rain. It's typical Silverstone weather. If we have a fully wet race, it's probably not going to be much fun, but a race with changeable conditions, a bit of wet, a bit of dry, a bit of wet again, could be very exciting indeed. But before we even get to that, we have a grid to be decided, and one of the big talking points of yesterday inevitably was traffic, and it's going to be a factor particularly in Q2 and Q3. OJ Borg is in the pits, David Addison and John Watson trackside. John, we say it every time, but it's a stunning entry and another cracking race in prospect.
Well, I mean, that's 62 cars around the Silverstone circuit. I mean, it's where do you look? In fact, it's a question of where do you look for a clear patch of racetrack, because quite simply, traffic management, particularly in your qualifying lap, is going to be absolutely key. Some teams have run some of their new sets of tyres, some have held back on the belief that they want to use those tyres in the race, but they may have to use them both in qualifying.
This is how the championship looks, not just the endurance series, but taking the endurance and the sprint series together. So you have Robin Frins and Laurens Vanthoor ahead of Stefan Ortelli, with Norbert Siedler third. Norbert Siedler, of course, being the man that inherited the win at Monza after the on-the-road winning Lamborghini was excluded for a fuel rig infringement, although that has been appealed. Maxime Martin and Dirk Muller in the points after the win that they had at Lugaro at the start of the season. And Renat Salikov, Siedler's partner from Monza, currently lying 6th. The bulk of the drivers, of course, do both championships, but have differing results across both. With so many cars here in the Pro Cup, it is hugely competitive. So Frins, Vanthoor joined this weekend by Jean-Carl Vernet, and they are going to be among the drivers to watch. Vernet, of course, taking the 2 championships together, the 2 series together, is 11th in the standings. So, with 62 cars, it is going to be very frantic indeed to try to find a clear lap. We had a number of stoppages yesterday because of people going into the gravel or having punctures, and I'm afraid the Jaguar, on a couple of occasions, disgraced itself by stopping out on the circuit. And you can see, just scrolling through the championship, how many different drivers we've seen this year and how many have been able to score points. But we are set for another very interesting qualifying period that's going to be getting underway very shortly. And here at Silverstone, as you can see, there is a supercar display. There are lots of Bentleys here as well, and a huge presence from Lamborghini with its 2 races also. Busy weekend on track and a very crowded pit lane. Don't forget, Silverstone has a long pit lane, designed and built this pit structure for Formula 1, but it is absolutely full of cars and teams. And John, we've been talking about how traffic is a problem on track, but so it is in the pit lane, of course.
Yes, it is. It's going to be very carefully managed. Again, you've got to have good relationships with the teams on either side of you, and you try to work out at what point when everybody's going to have to come and stop roughly around the 1 hour mark. So that's 3 stops on that hour. So you try and work out if it's a friendly team or a team that is not in the same category as you're in. Well, we're going to come in this lap. Does that work for you, or how do we work it out? You don't want to have the tightness of the pit lane infringing or having an effect possibly on the outcome of the event itself.
And just as we get to the start of Q1, we have rain on the commentary booth windows. So there was a suggestion it might come as early as Q3. Well, the forecasters have been foxed yet again, because with 30 seconds to go to the green flag here at Silverstone, we've got a little bit of rain. Now, is it enough to send the team scurrying for wet tyres, or are they going to go out and probably be able to cope with just a limited amount of spits and spots of rain, John?
I thought that might have been a flock of birds that flew over us, because the sky and the clouds are so high that if the rain that may be falling is not going to be of any, I would say, consequence. So most people will take the opportunity, I think, to go out and set a slicks just to see how it is, bearing in mind the track has not been in use since yesterday evening, so that has changed. On top of which, if there is a very, very thin or fine film of moisture on the surface, it'll be very tricky. But what we don't want to see is people going out on their first lap, misjudging it, falling off, going into the gravel traps. Safety car, maybe a red flag. You know, we had a lot of red flags yesterday.
Yeah. So, with an element of caution, out they go. And Q1, remember, is always the quieter because there are some 2-driver entries, and the 2-driver cars can only take part in Q2 and Q3. So you're looking at driver 1 in this session, and the marshals wave the green flags to say that the track is live. Wipers on, and it is a bit tippy-toey, isn't it, going through the Beckett's S's, as you would understand.
Indeed so. I mean, everybody will be on a set of most likely used, and that's by degree how used those tyres might be. A lot of the cars did not run any new tyres at all. Some chose to run a new set at the very end of the second free practice session. So those that have got that fresher tyre will no doubt have put it on now. But it is difficult conditions. You can see even just the headlights are reflecting off. There's an element of moisture on the surface, not enough in my view to warrant the need to go onto a set of wet weather tyres. Ideally, if you had anything, you'd go onto a set of intermediates, but we don't run intermediates in Blancpain.
Yesterday, the timing screens were absolutely littered with car numbers for drivers running wide and exceeding track limits, and the race director, Alain Adam, has just put up a message to say a reminder, any car improving while not respecting track limits will have lap time cancelled. So he's put a marker down early on. Wipers on as you ride in the 23 Nissan. There are certainly spots of rain falling, but it's not that bad. It's not a desperately wet road, but it's greasy enough just to make the drivers a bit hesitant, and of course some more hesitant than others means you suddenly get into a bottleneck, and there's a Ferrari off there. Car spinning coming out of Abbey, so that does suggest it's worse than we first thought.
No, you could see the reflection of the headlights on the circuit as they came down into Stowe, so the rain that we see here in the window of our commentary booth clearly is less than we're seeing further around circuit. And of course Silverstone does have its own microclimate, and it's well known for it to be raining in one part of the track and not quite bright sunshine in the other bit. But there's an example of just coming through Aintree, putting the power on. The curbs, of course, they're going to be the area of the racetrack you need to stay well clear of.
Now there is an element, isn't there, if you can get the warmth into the slick tyres, even on a greasy road, as the Audi has a wobble ahead, the slicks will still work. It's getting those up to temperature before the rain really comes down and sends you scurrying for the pit lane.
Well, there's a struggle for anybody to get... Look how tippy-toe the Audi is coming into Copse. I mean, really, because the racetrack doesn't look wet, there is that very fine film of moisture on it, with tyres that are cool and are losing temperature because they're not able to use the tyre. And again, up at Beckett's, now the rain is falling there more heavily. You could just see all of a sudden the Audi had to get out of the throttle, correct the slide, and then comes through the final part of Beckett very much more slowly than we saw on the previous lap. So that's part of the localized rain that's falling more heavily than it is where we are now, overlooking Woodcote.
Anders Fjordbach is the man in 74 Audi, the ISR car that you're looking at. He sets a purple sector because he's the only person who've done a time there. 12 BMWs off at the Beckett's S's. That, in this early part of the session, is Eric Dermont.
And that's a car that is a potential, certainly front-running car with in the hands, no doubt, of Frank Pereira. But we go back down to Vale, and again it's all tippy toes that come in now to the first part of the two-part club corner. Drivers will not be running wide as they were doing a lot in the two practice sessions we had yesterday morning and afternoon, because the curbing here, any part of the racetrack where there's curbing that's painted, as you're looking at the red and white, is extremely slippery.
Red flag. Straight away, I'm afraid, with 4 minutes and 8 seconds, we've got a red flag being shown, and the session is stopped. I was just about to offer a thought. Oh, there's the reason, a hugely damaged Ferrari. That one of the Kessel cars.
That's coming on to Anger Straight.
Anger Straight, you're quite right, John. I think that might be 111, the Steve Earle car. We'll double check in a moment, but that's the reason for the stoppage. It looks Kesselish in its livery, that, to me.
Well, it's spun coming out and no doubt speared off into the left, into the barrier, and then bounced back onto the circuit.
Now, you could argue, why stay out there if the rain is falling? Why not pit and wait for conditions to improve? Well, of course, the flip side is it may not improve, so you've got to do a banker lap.
Well, you have to do... Oh, there's the front of the car. You can see a bit more heavily damaged. Yes, you've got to try and get the lap in when the conditions are not deteriorating to the point where you're forced to come in and put on a set of wet weather tyres. That car will struggle to be repaired in time for the race.
Indeed, and it is 111, I was right. So it's the Steve Earle, Liam Talbot, Marco Zanotini car that was on the podium at Monza. Class winners were out there at Monza. There's number 2 Audi heading back to the pit lane. That's the Philippe Gaillard car. So, well, very badly damaged Kessel Ferrari. And John makes the point, it'll be very difficult to get that repaired in time for the race, because one of the features of the Blancpain timetable is to cram everything in to 2 days. So rather than having people here for a bit of practice on Friday and a bit on Saturday and a race on Sunday, it's a much more compact timetable. The downside of that is that you don't have time, as we saw at Monza with the ISR Audi, to repair a car between qualifying and the race if there is substantial damage.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the photographs of the car, it does look, there's a lot of right front damage on the Ferrari. If it's non-structural, in other words, if it's just principally a lot of carbon fibre and maybe a corner, then there's a chance they can get that car taken back to the garage, stripped down. The benefit of the carbon fibre in the bodywork is that it absorbs an awful lot of that energy, but it's a question also, has anything structural within the front of the chassis been damaged? If that's the case, then it'll be a non-starter.
I've just seen one of the Silverstone medical cars heading that way, just to make sure the medical team will make sure Steve Earle is okay, the American spine consultant. So almost self-diagnosis if he's tweaked his back in any way, but they'll make sure that he's extricated as safely and swiftly and seamlessly as possible. And there is the Ferrari. Steve Earle is out of the car. You just get a glimpse of his crash helmet there with the marshals. There he is.
He's given it up, and that car isn't going to go very far this afternoon, because it's not just the right front, it's the right rear has also had a major impact. Yeah. So it's just, what happened? I don't know. It just, well, what happened was too much throttle, not enough grip.
I was saying Steve Earle, that didn't look like his crash helmet to me, but it was on the driver categorisation, it was going to be Steve Earle that went first. So if I'm doing him an injustice, apologies. But it's certainly that car of him, Liam Talbot and Marco Zannottini. But anyway, it has hit the barrier, it's caused a stoppage, but it may have been that they put Liam Talbot into that car first, for example. So, down in the pit lane, are we having many teams changing tyres?
It's not wet enough for wet tyres.
Exactly.
That's the trouble.
Yeah.
What you've got is this scummy, slick, light or rain on the surface with a cold surface, cool air, and ambient temperature, track temperature. You've just got to be careful. That's all I can do. Sit in the pits and let everybody else run and potentially get a time and have conditions deteriorate, or you have just to go out and live with it.
See how crowded the pit lane is. You've got there the two Lamborghinis and teams having to wait really until they've got a parking bay.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying if you've got friendly neighbours, then you might help yourselves during the course of the race, but inevitably it's going to be extremely tight.
The first and the last garages are the key areas, aren't they? And it's Schubert that has the first garage, so there's a bit of space up at the top end of the pit lane. Then it's Bentley. And guess who's got the final garages at the end of the pit lane?
Well, they always have the final. But maybe that's because they win a lot of races. They get that little perk.
It's WRT, the team in question.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is if you want to go to speak to the guys in WRT from where the commentary booth is, it's like doing a marathon.
I saw a taxi outside. I wondered who it was for, John. Yeah. So Vincent Voss's team at the far end of the pit lane. I mean, they would argue they've got so many cars, they need all this extra space. But of course, AF Corsa have a lot of cars. There's Malcolm Wilson back from Rally Portugal to come and oversee Bentley for the day. There's the car that won last year. Andy Merrick, Stephen Kane, Guy Smith, the drivers then as now.
They're not feeling so confident. There's the Ferrari just getting loaded onto the trailer. They'll take it back, they'll assess the damage, they'll do everything possible they can to get the car repaired. But I suspect that seeing the right side of the car pretty heavily, so a good smack in the right side of the rear, the suspension clearly is gone. Yeah. And right front, depends whether the right front's got any structural damage, as we were saying. Going back to the Bentley boys, they've got a very good car, a really well balanced, a good handling car. They're just short of one element, and at Silverstone it's a high-speed circuit.
Yeah. And it's not enough these days to say, well, we'll run at that pace and we'll be there at the end, because it's a 3-hour sprint, isn't it?
It is a 3-hour sprint, and I mean, all you can hope for, all they can hope for, is with conditions as they presently are, which it looks like the rain that did fall, a brief shower, has disappeared. The track will improve, but it would be those kind of mixed conditions that might sort of be a bit more of a balance and a leveler for certainly the Stephen Kane Merrick Guy Smith car, which is the winning car from last year, as you pointed out.
I have to say that come the race, a few showers would make it even more exciting. I know the teams would hate it because they can't get a handle on what's going to happen, but it would certainly add to it.
It would add to it, but the downside is if cars go off, as we've just seen the Ferrari, you're going to have a full course yellow, you're going to have safety car deployments, and that obviously spoils the race, it interrupts the race. It can actually enhance the race because it can bring the pack back together if there has been a breakaway from one or two cars. So
I'm not hugely optimistic about that, John.
It's that right wheel looks like it might have been shoved backwards. It's had a heavy impact. It's had a big impact indeed. So I think you're probably right. I think we were right at our initial assessment. A lot of bodywork damage to the car.
What's the other side like? It's a bit dog-eared, isn't it, around the front as well?
Yeah, I think that's the effect of the right front. I don't know. I suspect the front hit first and then the back slammed in, and it's just sort of flipped.
Yeah. Great shame. I mean, Steve Earle is another stalwart block pound racer, isn't he? And regularly is to be found on track. So it's a great shame we've lost that car. We are about half a minute away from the session restarting. So now that car is out of harm's way, we're almost good to go.
And just over 9 minutes remaining.
Indeed, indeed. There is a car that you won't see in Q1 because it's a two-driver entry, the Dennis Anderson Martin Jensen car. So when you've got two drivers, you can only do Q2 and Q3. And of course, if the weather were to get worse and worse and worse now, they lose out because they can't, by the rules, even go out in Q1.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just the very thought I had. I mean, if it stays dry for the remaining, what, 9 odd minutes.
Yeah.
Then you could find yourself in 2 wet sessions and you've done nothing wrong other than having a two-driver car.
No, exactly. So the green flag is waved and we're back running then with, what have we got, counting down, 10 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock. So everybody goes pouring out of the pit lane. Is that Michael Lyons, I think, just in front of the camera, having a look at what's going on. Michael here, yes it is, to race Ferrari once more. And as the cars go pouring out onto the circuit, you can see the Ferrari there desperately hunting for a gap in the traffic. Also the Nissan, which is 73, trying to join in. But there's just no room, no space. Nobody wants to let them out. That's the Sean Walkinshaw driven car. AF Courses 50 Ferrari, ready to go. That was in the gravel on occasions yesterday. Gary Kondakov put it off the road. Alexander Moiseev at the wheel a bit at the moment. Let's find out about the travails of Kessel Racing, because OJ Borg is in the pit lane for us. He's caught up with the Kessel Racing team. OJ, what news?
Tiziana, it's not an ideal start to the race for you. What happened?
We still don't know, because our driver hit the barrier on the first lap, maybe because it was the asphalt is very slippery. So we are waiting to see the car to repair it. I don't think before the end of quali, but for sure for the race.
You think the car is repairable for the race?
I have to see the car before to tell.
Who was driving?
Steven Earle.
It's not an ideal start to the race. When something like this happens, does that upset the balance of what you were planning to do with other cars?
Of course, it's not the idle, but it's the race, so we will be ready to start from the back. I know that here is not so easy because we have a lot of cars, but we will try to do our best to be on the grid with both cars.
Tiziana, thank you very much.
Welcome. Bye.
So Kessel Racing does have work to do. It's confirmed it was Stephen Earle behind the wheel of it, so poor old Steve doesn't often do things like that.
Easily caught out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the usual thing. The racetrack has got a certain amount of grip. I don't know whether he maybe put a wheel on the curb. Most likely that may have been what caused the car to have that very violent snap oversteer and then slide. Once you get off the racetrack, the grass, of course, is going to have less grip than the tarmac is, and you're just sitting there as a passenger waiting for the inevitable and pray that the inevitable isn't as bad as it turned out.
So, put the Ferrari to one side for the moment. What we now have is, perversely, a drier track, because while they've been sitting in the pit lane, the rain has stopped. It's a little bit windy, and so the track is drying. And now, of course, we're into proper running, so the times are going to tumble. And we've got people starting their first flying lap. We haven't got any proper lap times up yet, but we're going to have them now. Really, they'd hardly done a lap time before we got to the stoppage. I don't think we'd had anybody do a proper time as such. There was an out lap, they were on a flyer, and out came the red flag. So only now are we going to see anything sparkling, and we've got purple sectors coming up from 1 or 2 of the cars, so we're starting to see who the more rapid drivers are, one of which is Cacabueno in the Brazilian BMW. And also Guy Smith is doing a very good middle sector of the lap. So we'll find out at the end of this first flyer exactly which cars are quick. Really the first new tyre run they will have had all weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who has put a set of new tyres on in the initial running would have been struggling for any level of grip now whatsoever. Now they've got a track which is probably not quite dry, but much, much better than they were confronted with, what, 10 minutes or so ago. The bite will be there, they'll feel it through the steering wheel, they'll feel it through basically the seat of their pants. So, and it is going to be segment by segment, you're going to see, or sector by sector. One car going quick, Guy Smith currently showing very quick in sector 1, purple. Wait and see what happens when we get into the sector 2. Maybe somebody who's ahead of him on the track will have a faster sector time.
Traffic a problem, and there you can see number 1 Jean-Carl Verne suddenly comes across a slow 75 Audi that had backed right off coming through the stadium. Marco Bononomi, Audi factory driver Bononomi, but of course he's trying to get clear track space and now go for it, but he compromises the lap of the car behind.
Absolutely, I mean Verne must have been well upset about that, because he was on a lap and he was trying to get something in the bank, and Bononomi just then backed him up, and now Bononomi's on the throttle doing the normal sort of Audi pace, and so Jean-Carl Verne has been sort of rather frustrated by that.
And there's a spin at Luffield. One of the Ferraris has gone off there. You can see number 100 is rejoining. That is the Henrik Hedman, Thomas Kemenata, Elton Julian car. Henrik Hedman at the wheel of it. And he's getting going again, but he had a spin, in fairness, because we saw it out of the window coming out of Brooklands, and he ended up at Luffield. So it was quite a big lose on wet grass. So thankfully he's not hit anything. And he's now struggling for traction to get back onto the road. He is back on the road, but has that car... Oh, he's got broken suspension. That's why he had a spin. Now, that's strange, because...
Now, did he hit something first, or did that break?
He may have been hit by a Bentley. We're getting a report. So a Bentley has made contact, and a Bentley is a fairly solid car. So that's the reason the car spun. It got a bit of a tap in the tail, to say the very least.
Well, that's the effect of running out of time and everybody under pressure. And Bentley certainly trying to maybe use the conditions to their advantage. These are the kind of conditions they need to enable them to get further up the grid. If it was a fully dry track with the performance the car is showing here at the minute, look, headlights flashing. I mean, this is not hanging around, this is serious stuff from Guy Smith.
We're also getting reports that there may have been contact as well between a Bentley and a Lamborghini, so the big British cars are getting stuck in, to say the least, this morning. Captain Masaccio, incidentally, has done the gun time, 2 minutes 3.897. Malcolm Wilson looks on from the Bentley pit box. Now, where is 7? It's there at Club, and it's 4th, now 5th in the times, because Johnny Adam has just gone quickest, the Scotsman in the Aston Martin, ahead of Chio, and there is the incident between number 100 and, in fact, 25 was the car that tagged it, apparently. The Fabio Mancini, Andre Berzin, Rino Mastronardi Ferrari. That's under investigation.
Guy Smith going the long way around, coming into village, and gets through cleanly, so managed to maintain his momentum. Guy Smith still currently fastest in sector 1. There you can see the purple 36.5. Waiting to see second sector time. Is that going to be purple? He may have lost a little bit of time making his way. It's a personal best. So this could see Guy Smith move up, further up, as Johnny Adams still remains quickest of all, 2:02.043. Little under a second slower than the best we saw yesterday. But of course, most people will be running very fresh, if not a new tyre.
So here's Guy Smith coming out of Luffield then. He's about to make his way up towards the timing line, and 6th he is because of others just improving ahead. He comes up now 7th, comes up towards the line and goes second fastest, 2 minutes 2.139. So it's a good job done, this. So you've got British cars and British drivers first and second. Johnny Adam ahead of Guy Smith, and the Bentley second. That hopefully will put a smile on the face of Malcolm Wilson of M Sport, who's with OJ Borg.
Malcolm, second fastest so far. That's a good start.
I think we dropped back now a bit. I think we're about 5th, I think, at the moment. 3 seconds, so it's quite a bit.
No, literally, you just got second and just went in there. That is a good start, considering the rain fell just as qualifying started. That's not bad. Yeah, well, we needed to get Stephen out there, obviously, because we knew the rain was coming, so hopefully it's paid off. Did you hit a green Lambo on the way round? The commentators think you might have hit a Lambo on the way round. I don't know, I haven't heard. I didn't hear anything on my headset, so I assume not. How much does it change any of your plans when a little bit of rain falls, makes the track greasy? How much does that change?
It's all about the strategy, isn't it? You know, putting the right people in the right time, getting your tyre package and everything right. So, as I say, hopefully we've caught it just before the rain comes.
Malcolm, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, Malcolm was saying we needed to put Stephen in the car, but Guy Smith is what's shown on the screen.
Yeah,
so
well, it may well be that they did make a change. Of course, the transponder should have been also changed. So the time that stands for Bentley, currently second quickest, just 96 hundredths of a second behind Johnny Adam. And times we've now got Jean Calverny up to third place, so Dan Bonhomme in fourth. So the guys that one would expect to be rising to the top are doing so with what, just 2 minutes of the session remaining.
Now there's the car that's fastest, Johnny Adam. Sorry, he's now second fastest because Rob Bell has gone to the top of the times. It's still British driver, British car. So you've got Bell, McLaren, Adam, Aston Martin, Smith, Bentley, shown as the top three at the moment. But now the McLaren goes top. That's interesting because yesterday McLaren's did not look that flash.
Well, they ended up being fifth quickest. Kevin Estra did a very good time at the end of the session. But what we see on Friday is everybody's running principally the tyres that they would have the best of. Well, that a Bentley off there.
Yes, that's 8, isn't it? It is. That's Max Book.
Yeah, down at that was Village. So,
and Book's on his first lap, John. He's not yet done a lap time.
Well, he's not going to get very many more chances. He's got this lap. He'll manage to complete this lap, including the spin. He'll get one flying lap before the checkered flag comes out. There's no. The Bentley's going very slowly, in fact. So there's a problem. Is that a left front puncture, right front puncture?
You might be right. It does look low, doesn't it?
It looks strange.
And have a look. Yes, rear puncture.
Yeah, there's something certainly clearly with the Bentley on the right-hand side. So that may have been the reason why he had the spin.
Sure.
We maybe have assumed that it was his own mistake, but in fact that looks like it was other. So can the Aston Martin improve personal best in the first sector? Nothing in the second sector. Got to beat at 2:01.902, and it's a 2:0.
2 minutes 2:347. Yeah, so 3/10 down on his own best.
Yeah.
Only one driver has done a 2 minutes 1.9, and that is Rob Bell. And Johnny Adam, still a very underrated driver, Johnny, but now part of the Aston Martin factory programme. He's gone second fastest. Bentley 8 limping to the pit lane. This is the quickest car, though. This is Rob Bell in what you might call a proper McLaren colour scheme, the orange. Threading his way through the traffic now.
Yeah, the traffic's not going to do it. He's going into the pit lane. It's all over for Rob Bell in this run. He's done a very good job to get the McLaren up into the provisional fastest. And are they going to now look skyward and hope? Because it is getting slightly more cloudy than it was even at the point when the rain began to fall, what, 15 minutes or 20 minutes ago. We could have another little localized Silverstone. And you would almost look at the screen, you think that in fact it might be raining. That's the everybody's backed off. It's checkered flag out, obviously, but wipers are going again, so there is rain falling, and that's falling on start-finish straight. So everybody's again going to be extremely cautious.
So the cars then head to the pit lane, and there's the driver change to put driver 2 in.
There's a little squeak of tyre somewhere.
Yeah.
I just wonder, have we seen the grid being formed?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it is, as you say, starting to not only get overcast again, or more overcast, but also spots of rain are falling. And so those two driver cars could well be condemned to be at the back of the grid. Q2 is going to start in just 5.5 minutes' time, and it's starting to rain again.
Track is completely
Some very frustrated drivers reporting back what
Frank Stipper sounds very animated indeed
about the traffic.
Yeah, well, that is a major problem when you get 62 cars on the field, and of course if they were all 62 pro cars then it's one thing, but you've got a mix of pro-am and am, and unfortunately the AMs get caught up in the dive bombing of the pro cars who are out there to get the cars onto the grid as far up as possible.
So Rob Bell, the Brit, the fastest in that session. And they're heading down the pit lane is the 11 Ferrari that went well at Monza of Michael Bronieschi, Alessandro Bonaccini and Michele Leone, or Michael Lyons. And that car went strongly. And a quick word about the Jaguar, because it's 8th quickest in Q1.
Well, it's nice to say something that's positive.
Absolutely.
Because we've seen the Jaguar being pulled back to the pits, stopping out on the racetrack, and here it is. Sometimes circumstance plays.
And if that is the grid, wouldn't it be great to have it starting 8th as the rain starts to fall? Anyway, Rob Bell is the quickest so far. He could be ultimately the quickest as well. Let's hear from Rob with OJ.
Rob, congratulations, quickest so far.
Yeah, which is a little surprise. I mean, the car felt fantastic, actually. Really good. I got a good run. But I thought I'd blown it the first lap out there. I was really quick. I was on a good lap, and I caught one of the Audis and made a move, which, to be honest, wasn't really on. And we made contact, and we both spun. So sorry to him, really. But we got going, kept my composure, and got a sneaky lap in before it rained, as it is now. So if it keeps raining, then that's good for us.
So will you be out the back of the garage for the rest of this session then, doing a rain dance?
Well, you'd think so, but I've got every faith in my co-drivers as well that they'll do a good job. So if it dries up, we're in a great place with Shane and Kevin. So either way, we'll be there or thereabouts.
How difficult is it when you've had a bit of contact on your first lap out, just to remain and keep that composure for the rest of it?
That's not too hard, to be honest. It's gone, it's a corner, you've made a mistake. The next one, you get back in the swing of things. So actually, it's not a big drama, but just a bit frustrating, I suppose, and for both of us. I'll go and see him later, he'll be all right.
And you said the McLaren is feeling fantastic. Does that mean you're on a hope for a win this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. You know, home track, so we know. We've improved since Monza, certainly, where we were a little bit off. And look, I think it's going to be a little bit in the lap of the gods today with the weather-wise and how that's going to pan out. But we're going to be there or thereabouts. And if you're there or thereabouts and you're a bit brave, then usually the luck comes to you. So that's what we're hoping for.
It's Silverstone. Do you think there's a battle of the British brands? You're here, Aston's here, Bentley are here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You always want to be top on home turf, but then again, there's some other good brands here as well. So we'll be the top home brand if we beat everybody, and that's what we're aiming to do.
Rob, thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
So now we think we know who it was that collided with Frank Stippler.
I mean, Frank Stippler obviously feeling very aggrieved by being attacked, as we call it, dive bombing, by the orange McLaren of Rob Bell. And he will go down and make his apologies. He probably have to run the gauntlet of about 20 odd drivers in the garage to find the one that was the poor victim of that. Doesn't appear to have done any damage or any bodywork damage to the McLaren. But of course, when you get hit by another car and you get spun, you're the innocent partner. You feel a bit upset about it, and that in itself, you'll carry that grievance forward.
Is that?
It's an
Audi number 3. No,
so that's the windscreen wiper, I think.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that was the Stippler car that was being attended to, but I don't think it is. Stippler's car's in the background.
You can see how much rain has fallen because under the car it's bone dry.
Yeah.
So that's on the circuit. Tricky.
This is how we look at the moment. Hooray for the McLaren at the top. Hooray for the Jaguar. That's 8th. So it is McLaren, Aston Martin, Bentley, all very British at the top, ahead of the brace of Audis. Nissan 6th, Audi 7th, the ISR car strong, the 75, ahead of the Jaguar. And then the best of the Lamborghinis, looking pretty good thus far. 9th fastest, number 63, courtesy of Giovanni Venturini. Scroll back. 53 cars ventured onto the track in Q1. Only 52 got a time in. As we know, we lost the Steve Earle Ferrari very early on. No more news as yet as to just how damaged that car is, but the 11 Kessel Racing car getting itself in the end to 19 fastest thanks to Michael Bronieschi. Scroll down a bit further, and the Mercedes struggling, and also 333 with Renat Salikov not going so well in that session as it did at Monza, but of course the BOP there was jolly kind to Italian cars. How the Porsches doing, 45th and 46th running together, the Attempto and Delahaye cars. Ahead of Triple Eight's BMW 47th fastest, and Max Buch at the bottom of the times, having not got a proper lap time in. On the one lap that he was really having a go on, he got the puncture, and so a series of installation laps effectively giving a time of over 12 minutes, which is hardly representative. So that car at the moment is 52nd, and there's a team hoping that the conditions dry up.
Yes, a Grosser Racing Lamborghini down in 51st place as well. I mean, a number of cars just simply misjudged. And that's, as Malcolm Wilson was pointing out, is where team strength really comes to the fore, in being able to make the right decisions at the right time. Rain again beginning to fall, and in fact you can just see a change all around. Silverstone was a pretty pleasant morning at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and now the cloud base is beginning to form all over the circuit, and the cloud base is lowering as well, which is not a good sign for this second of the 3 qualifying segments.
So expect this to be slower. Remember, the best time thus far is a 2 minutes 1.9 set by Rob Bell. The very tall Audi technician you're looking at there is Adam Hardy, who is in charge of number 1, and he's on the radio to tell his driver when the optimum time to go is, but it's not yet because they've not got any tyres on. And now, are we getting to a point where they are going to have to start thinking about wets? It's a wet track, the indication is given. Again,
it's at that horrible stage where it's too damp for new slicks. Used slicks are not going to be any better, to be truthful, but all you're going to do is tear up your wets. So if you use a set of wets, you destroy them effectively on a racetrack that's still too aggressive. That's one set down, and if it turned out to be a wet race, you want all your fresh, wet tyres possible, because once the edges of the wet tyre, the deep grooved wet weather tyre, once they lose those sharp edges, then they become a lot less effective.
What a wet race also does, of course, is take away any worries about fuel consumption. Actually, Silverstone is not as thirsty a track as Monza is from that opening round, so the teams come here less concerned about fuel, but if it is going to be a wet race, then even less concerned. And just look now how different that shot on the Hangar Straight looks. The light's so much brighter because everything is much darker and gloomier. It's almost like we're at the Spa 24 Hours already.
Well, there is a set of wets already on a car, and I'd wonder how old those wet tyres are, because again, tyres are made in batches, and sometimes the batches get held back because they're not required. Whereas if you get a brand new rubber from the manufacturer, you may get a different performance from 2 identical wet weather tyres, but one is maybe 6 months older than the other.
There is the Chio Buncombe Ripe Nissan ready to go. The black Nissan back from the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring last weekend, refueled, ready to go. And people being ever so tiptoey, of course, because although the cars have been out and done a session within greasy conditions, these drivers haven't. They're fresh in, and they've now got to be the pioneers as Frank Stifler awaits an audience with Rob Bell.
Yep, he's giving the old eye on the pit lane to see where is the McLaren driver, but WRT team working and not committing yet to going out. They've got 12 minutes remaining in this session as the Jaguar is with its wheels and tyres on, but it's up on jacks, so it's still awaiting its instruction to go back out on track.
And the Jaguar is 8th fastest, remember, going into this session. 8th fastest. I labour the point because John rightly mentioned it. It's nice to have something positive to say about that car. So often we see it in strife, but 8th, thanks to Gabriele Gardel in Q1. So here they come, out of Woodcote, heading towards the camera at Copse Corner and slithering their way in some parts around the circuit as the drivers try and get the temperature into the tyres. Whatever choice they've gone for in this, the wipers are on. I would say the track conditions now worse than we had at any point in Q1, and let's now see whether that's going to catch out the unwary in the way that the greasy track did at the start of Q1.
Well, you can just see there's now the first hints of spray coming off the wheels of some of the cars. I suspect some are still on the slick tyre, others will have wisely gone on to the wet weather tyre, which will give them a great deal more bite and a lot more confidence. But the downside is, in these conditions, they will use that wet weather tyre aggressively, and that will be a set of tyres less they will have access to should they need them for the 3-hour event later on this afternoon.
And look how busy it is. I know we laboured the point about traffic, but you can understand why now, because all of these drivers are going for a time. They all want the road to themselves, and 62 cars on Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit takes up a huge amount of real estate as the 32 Aston Martin there turns its way. The Stuart Leonard car out of Stowe Corner. Stuart Leonard, Paul Wilson and Michael Meadows. He's the real star turn in that car. The black Ferrari of Stephen Parov also down at the end of Vale. So we'll start to see times at the end of the next lap through.
Well, they're going to be a lot slower. They're going to be 5-6 seconds a lap slower, if not more. Compare that to a 2:01.9 for Rob Bell in the session that we've just seen, which started with the rain falling and then ended up, relatively speaking, a dry session. Now the track is at that, again, critical point where it's not fully wet, but most drivers will have wanted to opt for the wet weather tyre just for that little bit of extra confidence and reassurance.
But I reckon the rain might be easing a little where we are, so perhaps before the end things on track will have improved. Not necessarily enough to go quicker than Q1, but maybe that little shower has passed. We'll see, we'll see. 9.5 minutes just over of this second element of qualifying. And bear in mind that out of a 15-minute segment, by the time you've all got out on track and done an out lap and then done a flying lap, you've lost over 5 minutes, haven't you? So it's a very short period of time.
Yeah, we're still waiting for a first flying lap from anybody.
Exactly.
So all we've got are people who've been out gently down into Brooklands. There's not too much water on the windscreen, so that part of the racetrack looks like whatever was falling is terminating, but around the rest of the racetrack, it's really when you get there you realise that it's a lot wetter than I thought it was on board with the McLaren.
And this will show us, John, won't it, where the rain is falling and where the wet parts of the track are.
Yeah, coming down into Copse, this is the first corner on the flying lap. Very, very quick corner indeed. Apex, you've got to anticipate it, you've got to line it up and launch it before you actually see it. If you wait to see it, you'll miss the apex. Then the climb uphill into the first part of this sequence of corners at Beckett's very, very quick indeed. We saw the Bentley, in fact, in practice on Saturday, able to come into the first two parts of that and not lift. And that's a big, big commitment. Then back out onto Hanger Straight. That's where the Ferrari ended up in the barrier on the left-hand side.
A bit more rain there, I felt.
Yeah, you will get it. It's just the usual thing at Silverstone. Stowe. You're just simply reading the corner as it comes. Trust what you see in your windscreen and just trust the feel that you get through your hands, feet and through your whole body. Then all the way down into second gear into Vale. Then the short spurt across to make your first apex, which is the two-part of Club Corner. You try and make it one nice constant arc, not sort of a threepenny bit exit. Don't run wide on the exit of Club Corner because that could lead to a penalty. Then up into Abbey, where you've got to brake and maybe in this case, in these conditions, drop down a gear. And then the sweeping curve of Farm, then into Village. Opportunity to pass here, and then the other opportunity in this little sequence of corners is up into the kink. Track very wide, it allows a lot of flexibility of thought and entry into any of these sequence of corners. Then through Aintree, out onto the straight again, watch the curb. It will be damp, don't be too aggressive on the throttle, don't be aggressive on the steering wheel. Then the second, or depending, yeah, so there is the Lamborghini going out on slicks. Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? It's the 19 Monza winner, or on the road Monza winner. So 2:06 currently, and is coming into the pit, so we didn't get a full flying lap. Adrian Quaife hops down the pit lane. Alex Buncombe will be well versed in what the conditions are like, racing on home soil. Alex down in the pit lane for the Nissan team with OJ Borg.
Alex, how was that first session for you?
Not very good, in all honesty. Unfortunately, Geosun didn't get a clear lap, but also we were trying to be a bit clever and we ran old tyres from yesterday to save the tyres for Wolfgang and myself. So, but unfortunately, that was the only dry time on the circuit. So it's now wet. It's looking like it's going to start raining soon. So maybe we get another shot on some new tyres. But no, it's a shame we're P15 at the moment, which isn't quite where we want it to be. But still halfway through the second one, so we just have to wait and see what it does.
Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you.
P15 sounds bad, but out of 62 cars, he's fairly close to the front. Trouble is, he's got all the traffic around him.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, most of the traffic around him and the bits that he wanted to avoid are behind him. Nevertheless, they'd like to be in the front 5 rows of the grid. Just to give you an indication, lap times are approximately 10 seconds a lap slower at this point, with 5.5 minutes of the session remaining, than we saw in the first of these 3 qualifying segments. So track conditions are that really difficult phase. Do you want to waste your set of wet tyres, or do you want to waste a set of, you've kept back all your best tyres, your new tyres, you don't want to really run them in these conditions, because if it is going to be a dry-ish race, you want them for those dry-ish turns.
What's interesting is that now that number 8 Bentley has got the right number of tyres with air in them, it's gone fastest, because Maxime Soulet has done a 2 minutes 3.153, fastest within this element of qualifying. Doesn't help it overall, of course, because it's slower than many from Q1, but it's got it to 7th overall, but it's fastest in Q2. That's pretty encouraging.
By 7 seconds.
Yeah, and ahead of 3:33 Marco Seefried, but 2 minutes 3 versus 2 minutes 10. So 7 seconds is the margin between Bentley and Ferrari at the moment.
I mean, that's a very, very good run by Maxime Soulet, obviously on slick tyres, because he wouldn't be doing that on a set of wet weather tyres in these conditions, where the track conditions have begun to improve sufficiently to see the benefit of the slick tyre come through.
Just starting to wonder whether it's a genuine lap time, that, because 7 seconds of a margin, everybody else are round about the same bracket, but that is 7 seconds quicker. It does make one wonder whether it's a glitch, but anyway, it's what it's being shown as. You can see on the screen, 2 minutes 3.1. The number 12 BMW goes through. There's 3:33 Ferrari, which is the car that took the win at Monza. Inherited the win at Monza, but won its class anyway.
Oh, look at the wobble. Look at that, just coming out of club. The car just suddenly caught a little bit of dampness on the track, and I was just about to say the Ferrari looks like it's on it. Aggressive over the curb in Village, and I think feeling that the racetrack has got more grip and trying to take advantage of it, but it's a bit of a clumsy lap so far.
It's Marco Seefried, I think. Yes, it is, at the wheel of the car.
Third quickest in this segment of qualifying sector 2.
Indeed, we know that Marco is good, hard at work here. Alessandro Bonaccini, incidentally, for second fastest in this section of qualifying in this segment, has done a 2 minutes 6, so a 2 minutes 3 looks more sensible a time now, doesn't it, with people narrowing that gap. And Bentley 8, incidentally, is about to go across the line just up the road ahead of this car that you're riding with, and it's another lap in the 2 minute 3s from Maxime Soulet. So it's a genuine effort, that. Over the line goes Seefried. What does he do? He does a 2:7.7.
Yeah, it's a small improvement, but you know, there was a couple of parts of the lap where clearly aggressive on the steering, and also the back of the car getting out of line coming out of Abbey Corner.
Back on board with Seefried through Beckett's right, left, Wipers swoops across. He's having to work hard, isn't he?
Yeah. But he's got the confidence in the car. I mean, he's using the car aggressively. The speed, this is a quick car, so we should expect to see, while he may not improve, well, he's got the potential to go up to second quickest presently, but still Maxime Soulet on that 2:03 is, I think, well out of reach.
A couple of big twitches there going through Stowe. Marco Seefried did a personal best in the first sector of this lap. Maxime Soulet, who is top of the times in Q2, has done an absolute best in the first sector. And they're not that far apart on the track, actually. The Bentley is sort of just up the road a little bit. There it is, coming to Abbey, as coming out of club behind was the Ferrari. So Maxime Soulet, who's already done a 2 minutes 3.1, and all of this does suggest the road is getting drier all the while, doesn't it?
Very much so. You can just see how much energy the Bentley is generating. You can see a little bit of roll within the chassis, which is an indication that the car has got good grip. So whatever they've done at Bentley, they've got the handling of the car absolutely spot on for these changing conditions. Runs again very wide in the exit of Aintree, but not affected by doing so. The curbs now probably wiped dry by everybody's trip across them.
The sister car, number 7, is 12th fastest at the moment. We've just had another improver up to second fastest. Has gone Vincenti Potolicchio's Ferrari, 2 minutes 6.663. And Stefano Ortelli goes quickest now for Audi, 2 minutes 3.023. Maxime Soulet, after doing an absolute best in sector 1, pits. And that's with a minute to go. I reckon that's a pretty shrewd move to get your next driver in and ready, and at the end of the pit lane, good to go.
Yep, and that was a good lap from Soulet, because he was quicker on one of the sectors as he came in. But Stefano Ortelli, the irrepressible Stefano Ortelli, 2:03.023. It's only, well, just a tenth of a second quicker than the time set by the Bentley, and that was set 3 laps earlier. So track conditions are coming back to the drivers and their cars, but not anywhere near the level that we saw in that first qualifying session.
The Brazilian BMWs, the team coping with the cold, but there's the 77 Attila Abroy car heading through Stowe Corner. Of course, drivers new to Silverstone, team new to Silverstone, and the BMW never at its strongest at Silverstone, so it all conspires a little bit against. The cars look nice, these, good livery, they stand out from the crowd. and it's good that the commitment is in from this team to do both championships. So it really is a huge commitment to come and do a lot of European racing this year.
Nico Bastian and the 99 Mercedes-Benz currently now quickest, 2:02. So track conditions literally almost by the corner are beginning to pick up.
Yeah.
And
the flag is out.
The flag is out indeed. The session is going to be finished.
But if you stay out in this session, you will improve, because virtually the last car across the line should get the best of the conditions. But what you lose by doing that, of course, is the time in the pits to get your driver change done and everything ready for the next part of qualifying, and you risk going out a little bit late. How did the Jaguar do in that session? Because it circulated all the time. It's still hanging on to a place in the top 10 on the grid, as the fastest time is the Rover Racing Mercedes of Nico Bastian. Here is number 3, Stefan Ortelli, with an absolute and a personal best. Rides the curve, he's going to stay out then, so this should be the top time. He's got a 2:27 to beat, and Stefan Ortelli does a 2 minutes 2.034 by over 0.6 of a second. Briefly, he's quickest, but then Nico Bastian does a 2 minutes 2.717. Nico Bastian was behind him on the road, and Stefan Ortelli's moment of glory lasted but seconds before Bastian went to the top.
So the Mercedes working well, as is the Audi. Still overall fastest time to Rob Bell on the 2:0109 or 92, and that is, well, it's really about 0.3 of a second. Yeah, there is the car currently setting the fastest time. Nico Bastian coming up to complete his final timed lap, so he's got to see if he can improve on his 2:02.7. 2:02.6.
Yeah, not an improvement on that. Caca Bueno's second ahead of Stefan Ortelli as well. A 2 minutes 2.927 right at the very end. One or two times were appearing even as cars weren't near the timing line, as though the system was checking. Stefan Ortelli, lap time 4 cancelled because of track limits. That's why he got bumped down. So Stefan Ortelli, car 3, lap time, lap 4, cancelled due to track limits.
I wonder which part of the track. I suspect it's coming out of Club Corner, but it could be coming out of Copse, it could be coming out of pretty much any corner. We see even coming out of Woodcut, drivers running very wide, but Copse and Club of the Two Corners most likely to be the suspect.
So that's why Nico Bastian was put back to the top of the times, because Stefan had his lap disallowed and then Caca Bueno went second. So it changes and changes again. But, of course, this could all be academic if it's dry for Q3, when the cars with less fuel will be lighter and quicker. But
there is more light in the sky. That sort of cloud that came over the circuit seems to be moving away again. So we could see this final qualifying session being the session that is going to determine the grid.
Yeah. Good job by Nico Bastian, I've got to say, because he's somebody with limited Silverstone knowledge, and the Mercedes haven't really sparkled yet this year. We know they're good for some of the longer races, but Nico Bastian, who's done things like the VLN series, the ADAC GT, we have seen him in the Blancpain Sprint series, doesn't know Silverstone that well, as I say, but a really good job done there.
I wonder just whether the nature of the Mercedes, just in the track conditions, happen to be very complementary to one another. It's not what I would call an out-and-out sprint hot rod car. It really does work well in endurance events. But Nico Bastian did a good job and used the car's strengths to give him that benefit of being quickest.
Indeed so. Stefan Ortelli, I think, will be a little bit frustrated. He's arrived in the pit lane, not to find a parking space yet. They're going to have to put the little jacks under it, turn the car around and then put it into its bay. So that gets Ortelli. And Stefan walks off to go have a look at the screens. As a word with Vincent Voss. What's the device that Vincent's got around his neck?
I think it enables him to listen to or talk to all the cars he has.
Yeah.
So he's got contact with everybody, or each driver at any time when they're on the track, and with so many cars running under the WRT banner, it gives them that immediate availability.
Et l'avant, il est monté à régime s'il faut.
Ouais, mais au deuxième tour uniquement. Au premier tour, j'en avais pas.
Oui, mais il y avait encore de l'eau sur la piste.
So Ortelli helmet off, and has a very animated discussion with the team.
Well, I think anytime you get a time disallowed, you're going to say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I was within the track limits, but the track limits here do get abused, and we've seen a number of times being disallowed over the 2 days that we've been, or day and a bit we've been running.
This is how we look in Q2, not the grid, but just that isolated qualifying session. Nico Bastian in the Mercedes ahead then of Caca Bueno's BMW. Good effort from the Brazilian here for the first time. Then Stefan Ortelli ahead of Attila Abroy. So both the Brazilian BMs up within the top 4. Maxime Soulet good for Bentley 5th. Indy Danger, good effort for 6th ahead of Fabio Barbini. Then Marchi Lee in the Audi ahead of Vicente Portolicchio, Marco Seefried. Oliver Grutz a good job to be 11th, heading the AMS in 11th spot. That's a really good effort in the BMW in a car that went off yesterday in the bronze test. And have a look further down the order. Martin Plowman 15th in that session, Duncan Cameron 16th fastest, Pierre Hershey 17th. And who do we find further down than anticipated? Robin Frins only 19th in number 1. So pressure on Laurens Vanthoor to get that car in Q3 up the order. Adrian Zaug only 22nd, Andy Merrick only 23rd. So quite a few that lost out a little bit by being on the track at the wrong time perhaps. But Q3 looking as though it's going to be drier and brighter is when the grid is going to be formed. The Jag was 25th, hopefully without its mechanical maladies now. And we know there are 62 cars here. We know we've got one damaged car, which is the 111 Ferrari. But the rest of the grid getting through that session pretty much. Down to 59th, where you find the Oman Racing Team Aston Martin, the Ahmad Al-Harfi, Daniel Lloyd, Johnny Adam car that was so good in Johnny Adam's hands, but perhaps that was another one being caught out with the changing conditions in that session. So we are 1 minute and 9 seconds away from Q3 getting underway. That light at the end of the pit lane will flick to green to release the cars. And then we're into the best bit of the session, if you like, when the cars are lighter. You've got all the star drivers behind the wheel, and the grid pretty much it's going to be set in this part of the session. And
right now, I think it's going to be a dry session. I think we're going to get through it without any further interference from the rain that did certainly affect the second session pretty heavily. Initially affected the first session, but that improved enough for people to get into competitive times at 2:01.9 was the best time, which compares to a 2:01.097, so just 9/10 of a second away from the best overall time set on the second of the pre-qualifying practice sessions. But those times were set mostly by cars using tyres that were not brand new tyres. Some people might have used a very fresh set. Some might have opted to try and run a set just to get an indication, but the top teams will have been holding back their new tyres really for this opportunity.
Green light on at the end of the pit lane, and people wanting to get out on track quickly, and the 84 Bentley there struggles away, but it gets going now. So still it is Rob Bell's 2 minutes 1.902 that is the target, but I think it's going to be a target that will be obliterated in this next part of qualifying. 15 minutes and out pour the cars. So everybody now pours back out onto the track, and this final part of qualifying set to determine the grid. You can see how busy Silverstone is. One of the gorgeous Hurricanes goes through. Matt Griffin's Ferrari, 51, BF Corsa car, looking to get itself through traffic. Now, we know that in Q2 it was Mercedes, the Nico Bastian car, that was looking very strong. Let's catch up with Nico now in the pit lane.
Nico, fastest in Q2. You found the right setup out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of gamble because of the wet spots still on the track. Well, it was not easy, but as you know, we came from Nordschleife from last weekend 24-hour race. But it was more or less the same conditions, so we are used to it. And the lap was quite good. For sure not the fastest overall, because the second qualifying was better than the first one. But I was happy with the lap and with the P1 and Q2.
It seems like a lot of the teams who raced last weekend in that 24-hour race have come here with great setups.
Yeah, absolutely. So WRT, the winner of the last race in the 24 race, and also us, for sure. We get used to the weather. We also get used to the Pirelli, and yeah, overall we are quite happy in the moment with our pace. For sure, we are not 100% in the moment, but we get better and better. So yeah, looking forward.
In British terminology, it's spitting out here right now. It's raining just a little bit. Do you think anyone can go quicker than that time in Q1, in Q3?
I hope so a little bit, because we are in the moment on P7, which is okay, but I think Steph can do a little bit more now with a better car now. We changed a little setup again, so hopefully it's get better, but we would also be happy with P7, to be honest.
There's a bit of sunshine.
Yeah, a bit of it.
Thank you very much.
English weather.
English weather, says a man who's just raced at the Nordschleife, but that's not exactly noted for its tropicality.
No, it played a big part in the whole event over 24 hours last weekend at Nürburgring, and it's going to come into play again, because just at the point when I said that it looked like we're going to have a clear 15-minute session, no rain, the rain has begun to come in again at Woodcote, just at the point of start-finish. Everybody on slick tyres using that opportunity. They've got one lap, possibly one flying lap, in which they might be able to get in something that could challenge Rob Bell's time set in the first qualifying session. It's going to be a close call.
So it's busy, it's getting slippy, and the pressure is on, because this is make or break time for many of these cars on the grid. Number 19 Lamborghini then, one to watch inevitably in this session, Fabio Babini's car, the Huracan. And he's stuck in traffic, Mercedes fore and aft.
Yeah, I mean, you can do nothing. You've got traffic around you, nobody's going to concede. Everybody's got the same problem. They're going to try and do the best they can with a track that will probably begin to deteriorate if the rain continues. It's hard to tell whether it's getting actually any worse or whether it's, again, just these little skiffs come through. And you see it on your windscreen, you see it on the windscreen in our commentary booth. But it's difficult to tell what it's doing around the rest of the circuit.
Babini bails, doesn't he? Gets out of the way, trying to buy himself some clear track space here, which is easier said than done. One car that has just got some clear road, incidentally, going past our box at Woodcote, is the 73 Nissan, the Walkinshaw Plowman Dolby car. Craig Dolby driving now, and Fabio Babini there. Eventually he's going to have to bite the bullet and crack on with it, because he can't let everybody by. But you can see what drivers are doing. They're trying to get themselves some clear space. And this does become a very urgent 15 minutes, because by the time you take an out lap out of it and your first flying lap, you've lost about 5 minutes. So really, you've got 4 laps to do it in.
Alex Buncombe in the Nissan. So he again is going to be confronted with the same issues that everybody's got, and that is trying to find the clear lap. He's got the wiper, obviously enough rain falling on the windscreen, and he wants to keep it clear. And that means everywhere around the circuit, coming down to Copse, big corner, big commitment. It's going to be tricky.
On board with Buncombe then. Still 1 or 2 spots of rain on the windscreen. Powering his way up towards Maggots now, under the Blancpain gantry. Take the curb for the first part of the Beckett's S's. Mauro Engel is currently the fastest. Marco Ciocci is currently the fastest. Every car crossing the line is currently the fastest.
Everybody comes across the start-finish line, assuming it's a different car, it's going to be quicker than the previous car. So down to still in the 2:03s, low 2:03s, so not a challenge to the best overall time. Still stands with the McLaren of Rob Bell.
Marcus Winkelhock tops the times in Q3. They're ahead at the moment of Greg Gilbert. So that's the new Audi, the R8 LMS. But how's Alex Buncombe doing at Club Corner? Patience, patience, patience through this element, and now nail it. Take the curb, run a little bit wide. Just about acceptable, I think. Didn't put all 4 wheels over the white line. Past the wing, down towards the BRDC farm, turn right at Abbey. Stephen Kane now, top of the times.
Yes, and that's very, very close. In fact, he's within.
He's ahead of Rob Bell.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So great job by Stephen Kane.
Overall pole for the Bentley. So at Q3 time, quicker than Rob Bell in Q1. And you're looking at Alex Buncombe, who is having to work very hard here, partly because of all the grunt he's got on slippery track, and also because he's got traffic around him.
Very wide coming out of Aintree, runs the curb and over the AstroTurf. That time from Stephen Kane, 2:01.689, is going to be a big challenge. The Bentley have done it absolutely to perfection, certainly with their car, with Stephen Kane behind the wheel.
There's an errant Ferrari there, almost chopping back across the front of Alex Buncombe. Mirko Bortolotti in the 63 Lamborghini has now gone quickest, 2 minutes 1.651. Not for much longer he hasn't, because 22. Jan Mardenborough's Nissan goes quickest. No, it doesn't. Kevin Est goes quickest, 2 minutes 1.602. When we say quickest, we're meaning not just Q3 but overall now, because this is the fastest session.
So
Buncombe's 11th.
Where is the Bentley? Where is Stephen Kane? Has he got himself locked into traffic? Can't quite see the car coming through yet.
Norbert Siedler, number 333, is now the quickest. So there we found Kevin Est, but he's history, you know. I mean, he's yesterday's pole man almost. 2/10 down now on Norbert Siedler. So green Ferrari, which I think is down at Cops Corner, is the one to watch for now. But who else is doing purple sector times? Who else can get to the top? The order is Siedler, Est, Mardenborough, Bortolotti. Stephen Kane's down to 5th.
Yeah, no, but this is a lap. Either he's going to come in or he's going to do a slow lap, let it recover. He's trying to get just up in when he hoped to get up past it. Again, rain beginning to fall on the windscreen. Yeah. So and maybe we've seen that little flurry which occurred just literally midway through this third qualifying session. Kane in the pit lane.
Kane in. There is 63, which was quickest. It's now 4th. Mirko Bortolotti, former Formula 2 champion, Eurocup Megane Trophy champion, and part of Lamborghini's Young Driver GT3 programme, along with Adrian Zaug and Giovanni Venturini, who drive this car with him, all graduates of the Super Trofeo.
Surprise, surprise, Laurent Van Thor, 2:01.283, 1/10 of a second quicker than the Ferrari.
But the Ferrari, Norbert Siedler at the wheel of it, has done the absolute best in Sector 1. And how is Bortolotti doing? He's done a personal best, but a bit down in the middle sector. So not necessarily suggesting this is going to be a massive improvement, even if he stays out. He will stay out. So it is Vantor, as John says, who is the fastest, ahead of Norbert Siedler, who's also down in the middle sector. Through goes 5th Bortolotti. That lap was a 2 minutes 3.7, so no improvement. The Grasser Racing Team run car. And where is Norbert Siedler? Here he is. So this is the car that's second. But Vantor has done an absolute best again in the first sector. So even if Siedler does go quicker, I suspect that the next lap's going to be better still, and Siedler's pitting. And he comes.
But he'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
Currently, we've got just under 6 minutes remaining, so it isn't a safe second place right now. As long as it, I mean, we keep looking up at the sky and a bit more rain begins to fall, then it dries up. Laurent Van Thor on that flying lap, waiting to see what he does in the second sector, purple for the first sector of the current flying lap.
New set of tyres potentially for Siedler.
Yeah.
And then he's got really one shot, hasn't he? He's got 1 lap to warm them and 1 lap to deliver.
And that's what they're intending to do,
yeah,
put a set of tyres on. They've probably not used all the sets they had available because of the changeable conditions. Laurens Van Thor fastest overall in second sector, purple first, purple second.
That set of tyres going on Siedler's car, is it for a time or just to scrub them in, do you think?
No, absolutely
That's
for a time. Absolutely. I mean, they will do an out lap, a flying lap, and then the session will be finished. So the tyre will only on a very brief cycle. It will be a great set of tyres to start the event on, assuming it's going to be a dry start for the race.
And assuming it doesn't get wetter in this part, and the slicks are still going to work. So Vantor, quicker again, 2 minutes 1.058. They send the car out a little bit later, don't they, at WRT, but it's there when it matters. Out goes Norbert Siedler with 4.5 minutes, but you see more spots of rain here over at Village and Aintree.
Yes, I mean, that new set of tyres, it'll feel great until you get to that part of the racetrack, and then you'll think, well, why did I mingle? A little bit of racing coming into the pit lane with one of the Lamborghinis and the BMW trying to jockey for a position, then they've got to slow down to 50 kilometres per hour.
How's Kevin Est doing? 2 personal bests here.
Up to third place.
Yeah, it should be an improvement for the McLaren. 77 is in the pit lane, but Kevin Est comes now up towards the timing line. The 2 minutes 1.0 to beat, and Kevin Est goes across the timing line and goes second, 2 minutes 1.334.
But Siedler may have the chance to respond. He's on a brand new set of tyres, and is that Alvaro Parente? It is.
It doesn't happen very often. A rotating Alvaro. That's over at Village, back onto the road, so 59 McLaren in strife.
Now that would, I would assume, be because of track conditions rather than Alvaro Parente just simply losing control. And that's the danger. One bit of the track still has got a lack of grip where everywhere else is feeling very good. Jan Mardenborough
has now done the best in Sector 1, yeah. And fourth fastest anyway, 22. So Jan Mardenborough doing a good job.
First time we've seen the Nissan really sort of showing its full potential.
And interestingly, there it is. This is the Pro-Am class car. Jan's way up on the curb and sideways. I think it looks great in this stealth black livery. The car having run in these colours at the Nürburgring 24 hours a week ago. Jan Mardenborough working hard.
Yeah, and he's got the wipers working hard too, because that's the bit of the racetrack that is the least grippy right now coming through Abbey. Traffic ahead of him, so that very good first sector time probably not going to be able to be fulfilled in the final two sectors. Two Mercedes SLS ahead of him. This is where the track is shown to be slick. An Audi and a Mercedes. So can the young driver go back into the pit lane to see a Lamborghini driving out?
Quite a few lap times have just been cancelled because of track limits, and amongst them significantly the number 19 Palmer Babini Mull Lamborghini. Also Alvaro Parent has had a lap time cancelled, and Matt Griffin has just had a lap time cancelled as well, all for track limits, interestingly. The race director is standing no messing this morning. Alex Buncombe has just done the absolute best in the first sector, 20th, number 23 Nissan. Now this, on his slick tyres, don't forget, is Norbert Siedler, and he is really pushing.
Yeah, no, he's really being aggressive coming through Beckett's, clipping the marker in the middle of Beckett, so he's got a chance, but look at the traffic ahead of him. He's got to catch that with the speed he's got through the car. His headlights going in, there's about 5 cars ahead of him into Stowe, and that's going to be traffic he's going to catch before he concludes this lap.
Personal best in that first sector as well, but as I say, Alex Buncombe is the absolute best in the first sector in the Nissan, so that's the next one to watch as Siedler goes down through Vale. He's got the Kaspersky Ferrari, the AF Corsa car, just up the road. Vantor has pitted and may not venture back out, and a spin into the pit lane there for, well, I think it is the Carimoge BMW. Looks like the Boots and Gignon car to me. Joe Osborne has just got up to 4th in Triple Eight. Tremendous effort by Joe Osborne, but with the car facing the wrong way at pit in. Here comes Alex Buncombe then. Middle sector was a personal best.
Oh, that's traffic, and the BMW has driven back across the grass, back onto the racetrack. As we wait to see where is that Nissan.
He's going to be okay. He's coming out of Luffield now. There is traffic ahead, but he's going to be okay for the end of this lap. So this should be a good job done by Alex Buncombe, who comes across the timing line now. And he goes quickest of all, 2 minutes 0.829. Alex Buncombe takes pole position, but Norbert Siedler, personal best, absolute best, and no traffic ahead because he's just gone barrelling up the inside of a slower Ferrari going into Luffield. There you can see the slower car now tucked in behind. Norbert Siedler has thrown everything at this lap, so a 2 minutes 0.8 to beat. Norbert Siedler was 4th at the start of the lap. He goes second, 2 minutes 0.9.101 of a second behind Alex Buncombe. Wow.
Well, that was entertaining and a great drive by Buncombe, just managing the traffic. Norbert Siedler likewise used the best he could with the Ferrari. And Kevin Hester, how aggressive are you got to be there coming through Brooklands?
He's not improved in either sector, but it's good to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, currently in 4th, 201.
At the flag out.
Yeah. But once you've done your first flying lap on a brand new set of tyres, just come in. Whatever you've got, whatever position you've got, that's it. And keep those tyres for the race.
Well, Alex Buncombe's pole position, fantastic job that, by a 1/10 of a second from Norbert Siedler. There are others that have still got to take the checkered flag. I think Alex can squeeze another lap out of this, but Norbert Siedler can also squeeze another lap out of it, and Siedler has done an absolute best in the first sector. Alex Buncombe is not necessarily safe, but Siedler's got caught up in traffic.
It's all over for Siedler. There's nothing he can do. The session is effectively over. It is over now. The checkered flag's out, and Alex Buncombe has done what he dreamed of doing, getting pole position here at Silverstone in a Nissan.
Lots of head shaking at Rinaldi Racing. I think Norbert Siedler has had to back out of it because he knew he'd been affected. But once again, he proves that he's the real Ferrari star at the moment, doesn't he? And also, Rinaldi Racing proving to be one of the top Ferrari teams. Everyone kind of associates AF Corsa, but here's Rinaldi. Great job at Monza, great job here. And even if this isn't as kind of place on the BOP as Monza was, Norbert Siedler has got the car up there to the front of the field. It's in the Pro Cup, remember, this week, not Pro-Am, because of the addition of Marco Seefried to the driving force. But Bob Neville's band of merry men will be happy with that, I think, because Alex Buncombe is the fastest.
Yes, indeed, and what a nice position to start in.
a bit of a smile from Bob.
Yeah, Bob, you know, it's sort of, that's a smile. That was a smile, believe me.
Well, let's see if we can hear from the Nissan team, because no doubt Bob Neville is very happy with Alex Buncombe's efforts. I say it every time, but Alex still somehow manages to fly under the radar, and people don't give him the credit he deserves, but he really is a very, very good driver. So Katsu Masachio, one of the co-drivers of Alex Buncombe, and Bob Neville were ready to have a word with us, I think, although Chio has dashed over to say well done, Alex. Failing that, let's hear from Bob Neville with OJ.
Bob, congratulations. Great work by Alex there to put it on pole.
Very good. Last minute, we took a second set of tyres, which may not be so good for the race, but we wanted to try and go for pole for this one.
And you did get it, and I was talking to Alex earlier on, I think in Q2, and he said you might have missed it with the rain, but you seem to have timed it just perfectly.
Yeah, no, I think we got it just right for a change.
So that means if you're on pole, and you say you've just used a set of tyres, what hopes do you have of winning this race now? This is your home race.
Yeah, this is our home race, and we're going to try and win it if we can, as simple as that. Yeah.
And do you think you can?
I think we can.
Bob, thank you.
Okay, great.
Bob Neville is normally somebody who is fairly reserved when it comes to making predictions. That's quite bold for Bob.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I suppose what else could he say?
Well,
in reality,
yeah.
You get asked the question, and also the answer is almost in the question. Of course he wants to win the race, but it's a 3-hour race, and it is going to be a race, no doubt having influence from the weather, and they opted to use a second set of new tyres, and they've benefited from it. And it's all about, for me, in a race with 62 cars or 61 cars, as it may turn out to be, the further you are to the front, the more you've got control of what you're going to do once this race gets underway. To start mid-pack, you will waste so much time, lose so much track position in getting your way through cars that automatically ought to be behind you. So they've got the pound seat. They're going to start alongside the Ferrari. And the real threat to everybody, of course, is the number 1 Audi, Lawrence Van Thor, particularly behind the wheel, starting on the second row of the grid alongside Kevin Estre in the McLaren. So 2 real horses when it comes to racing, right behind the Nissan and the Ferrari. So opening lap, going to be interesting.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So the teams now have a limited amount of time to do what's necessary to the cars, ready for the race this afternoon that will get underway at 2:45 local time. And it's a 3-hour race, of course, with the 2 mandatory pit stops. And so, in the end, we have Alex Buncombe from Norbert Siedler on the front of the grid. Lawrence Van Thor third, ahead of Kevin Estre. Then Joe Osborne taking the 5th slot. Really good effort for 888 there, ahead of 63 Mirko Bortolotti. Jan Mardenborough's Nissan 7th. 8th fastest Stefan Rochelmi. 9th fastest Stephen Kane. 10th in the end was the 75 Audi of Frederic Vavish, ahead of the number 6 Marcus Winkelhock Audi, and then Danny Juncadella coming to 12th in his Mercedes. 13th fastest, the Schubert car with Claudia Hurtgen, one of the drivers this weekend. Good to have her in the championship, but it's Dominic Baumann who does the time ahead of Franck Pereira, then Fabio Anidi and Marco Asma. The 8 Bentley of Andy Soucek, in the end 17th fastest. Dan Lloyd was 18th in number 44. Then Steph Dusseldorp ahead of Mike Parisi in the HTP Bentley. Mauro Engel out qualifying Craig Dolby, who in turn was ahead of Michael Meadows, and then it was Michael Lyons, 24th in the Kessel Ferrari. So remember, we've got 60 cars that will be hopefully able to take the start. 61 if you throw into the melting pot the repaired 111 Ferrari. So looking to mid-grid now. Jimenez was 25th, ahead of Marco Giocci. Peter Kochholst was 27th, then Greg Gilbert, Morgan Moulin-Traffer, ahead of Matthew Stump. Ollie Bryant in the Acuria Cost BM 31st. And the car that won on the road at Monza, only 32nd here. So one car good, the other struggling, but equally 59. Alvaro Parenta, long way down, ahead of Johnny Cocker and then Yelmer Berman. So Alex Buncombe it is, who is the man of the session. He is on pole position. Let's hear from Alex with OJ.
Alex, a British driver on pole at Silverstone. Does it get better than that?
Oh, I should say no. It's an unbelievable day. Big thanks to the team. You know, they've worked so hard, and we've been really close. You know, every year we've been P4, P2, and yeah, to get the pole is just unbelievable. I'm lost for words.
Have you been on pole here before?
Don't think I have. No, not in the Blancpain for sure. So. Yeah, big surprise. The car, I didn't think we quite had it in the car, to be honest. For pole, I would have been happy with it, you know, anywhere in the top 10 would have been great. But no, I went out on the Q2 tyre at the start of Q3, and the car wasn't feeling good at all. So there was about six minutes to go. So I asked for a new set of tyres just to try and go for it, because I think my best lap before was a 2:02.3, I think, which was nowhere. And yeah, I knew it had to be done on that one lap. There was about three minutes to go, I think, when I started the last lap. So I knew it had to be done, and the traffic was kind to me. It was a fully clear lap, and yeah, it was just I wouldn't say a perfect lap, but it was damn close.
Thank you very much, Alex. Good luck for the race.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, a great job done by Alex Bunker, but of course, John, that's only the start of the story, really, because there's now 3 hours of racing, and that's a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, but as we saw in Monza, with a big grid, being at the front makes so much difference. And for Alex Bunker, starting in the front in the Nissan, he's got a quick car in a straight line and a good handling car. He can do a lot of good work.
Let's have a look at some of the highlights across qualifying, which began with a slippery road. It began with a Ferrari in the wall on the restart. Henrik Hedman had a spin, and of course that car didn't come out for Q2 nor for Q3. Johnny Adam was one of the stars of the first part of qualifying. Number 8 had it off. That was Max Buch, and he limped the car back to the pit lane. So Q1 was headed in the end by Rob Bell, and the teams had a limited amount of time in order to get themselves ready for the second part of qualifying, and that was going to be all important to see exactly what times they could do. But the session began with the road being even wetter, and it meant that there was some hard work to be done as the cars threaded their way around the lap, including a hard-charging Marco Seefried, who was really pushing very, very aggressively indeed. Stefano Ortelli was looking good, but in the end it was Nico Bastian who was the fastest within Q2, and all eyes then came onto the third part of qualifying, where we had Alex Bunker ultimately take the top time away from Laurens Vanthoor, and some great efforts put in, not just by Bunker but also by Norbert Siedler. Alex Bunker will start on pole from the three of us here at Silverstone. Join us later in the day. For now, bye-bye.